So I'm Tony DePrima. I'm the executive director of the Sustainable Energy Utility. We really hadn't started. This is Kathleen Saul. Kathleen's with the Center for Energy and Environmental Policy at University of Delaware. She's interning with us. And so I was saying what prompted this meeting is I had put out a request to folks that we've had associations with who have been supportive of the Sustainable Energy Utility, let them know that we're going in front of the Joint Sunset Commission next Tuesday, and I was just saying there may be a postponement, and I just found out today. And really, quite frankly, I'm here to hope that the Sierra Club could show up and maybe say positive things. If you come representing an organization, you get 5 minutes. If you come representing yourself, you get 3 minutes. In the public hearing, it's from 5:30 till 8 in Legg Hall on the 5th. But again, there's a good chance that may change, so we'll put out an email blast again, and you can just forward that to folks. And so really I came here to give an overview of the SEU. What have we been doing? What do we have planned? And just a little bit about the history. But I'm the executive director, and I've been there just a little over a year now. So I'm really kind of focused on the things I've been active with and where we see things going forward, but also some of the programs that we've done. So you're seeing some of the slides I intend showing the legislature, so any feedback would be appreciated. So, this is an SEU 101 sort of thing. So the Sustainable Energy Utility was created back in 2007, and specifically it's there to deliver energy efficiency and renewable energy programs to Delawareans, both residential and business. And so the focus, the focus has been, the 4 focuses I put up there, particularly since I have been there, has been accountability, transparency, governance, and programs. Really, our organization is relatively new. It was started in 2007. It really didn't start functioning as a committee that was meeting until 2009 or so. Amy, I think at some point you were helping staff it. It started out as a task force. It morphed into a committee, and then it eventually morphed into an actual 501c3 corporation. And so in the early years, it was being run fairly informally. And so we've been focused on really sort of acting more like a full-fledged nonprofit organization that really has obligations to the public, just like a public agency in terms of transparency and accountability and governance. So, on the accountability side, this was the first, 2012 was the first year we actually had a budget. It's one of the things I insisted on, that we create a budget and we sort of act within a budget, so we have a 2013 budget. One of the things the SEU did is, really it wasn't until 2011 that the SEU actually had control of its funds. Prior to that, there was a fiscal agent, and then DENREC controlled the funds. When the funds were actually transferred to the SEU board, they wanted a full accounting of all the money to make sure what was being transferred. We've been going through over a year of financial statements. The accountants we hired determined that there was some, the way it was being counted before wasn't created, so we were actually restating our 2010 and 2011 financial reports. Those will be made public. So again, we had a full accounting request of all of the funds that were spent over the years. And we made a decision, which was the last time I was here in front of the Sierra Club. There was legislation that was going to require the SEU to go under state procurement. We passed an internal policy to do that. So we're now operating an internal policy that everything we do is bid out, all contracts are bid. We've also acted towards better transparency. We adopted and now established a FOIA policy, FOIA procedures and regulations. All of our contracts are posted. All meeting times are now posted on the website, and all of our agendas. So we worked really hard this past year to get all the agendas and all of the minutes posted. There was lots of missing minutes because over the years things who was doing the minutes bumped around, and they weren't always complete. So we made a real effort to get all of the minutes posted. And then in the area of governance, we really started out with two co-chairmen. It was John Burns, Dr. Burns from the University of Delaware, and Senator McDowell, and they bumped along for about 2 years with just having co-chairs. Well, the rest of the board felt it was time for us to be sort of a grown-up organization. We need a chair, we need a vice chair, we need a treasurer, secretary, so we've elected officers. And the other thing they said is we need to spread reliability out amongst the board, so we've created committees. So we have fully functioning committees. We have a governance committee, we have an audit and finance committee, and we have a programs committee, each with a different chair and meeting. Now the other thing that we've done is we've got regular meetings. Meetings were fairly haphazard. They would get often canceled, not canceled. They didn't have regular meeting times. We think it's important to the public that they know when we're going to meet, that we have a regular schedule, and that we keep to it. So we now have a regular meeting time. It's every other month. It's the third, I want to say the third Thursday. In between those months is when the committees do their work. And the other thing we've done, if you attended, we sort of cut out the idea that we're going to go into executive session and do a lot of work and then the public hangs around. We rarely do executive sessions anymore. We do just about all of our business in public. When we do an executive session, we wait till the very end of the meeting so that the public's not sort of waiting around for us to get out and go back to business. So that's just customer service. So, and then the real focus has been programs, which is the rest of this, what I'm going to really talk about today. But I just want folks to know that there's been a real effort to transform the way we do business. The focus has been on transparency, accountability, and better governance, corporate governance. So this is our organizational chart. I mentioned all of the various committees. We only have 2 employees, myself, and we have an office manager. And now we have an intern. So it's 3 really.
I'm the Newark branch.
We call her the Newark, she's the Newark gang. She's the Newark chapter of the SEU gang. So anyway, so what are the funding sources? Where does the SEU get its money? Well, one of the things in the law that created the SEU was that we have the ability to do bonds. So we can raise capital through doing tax-exempt bonds and other kind of financing, and then we can lend that money out for energy efficiency programs. The other way that we get funds, and I really call this our bread and butter money right now, is the RGGI dollars. Is everybody familiar with the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative? If you're not, I'll go over that. But Delaware is part of a regional initiative with states from Maryland to Maine. There's a couple in there that have been dropped out. But it's really almost like a cap and trade program, where power plants are paying into a fund based on their CO2 emissions. And the idea is that that money then is handed out to the states for programs to reduce CO2 emissions and reduce energy costs to consumers. And so we get 65% of Delaware's proceeds. We project that out to be about $3.5 million a year, depending on where the market is. There were some recent changes in the RGGI. It may grow. And then you should also know, and I think this is going to be an issue with the, I'm predicting it'll be an issue, but we have about $9 million sitting in the bank. And so as a consumer, you're saying, well, what are you doing with $9 million sitting in the bank? Isn't that money supposed to be out there, doing things to reduce carbon emissions and improve energy savings for Delaware? And so the short answer is, while I should have put, I'm thinking about the process here, I need to put the error dollars up there. For the first 2.5 years of the SEU, the stimulus money came along. It was a huge pot of money, and it had to get spent quickly within certain deadlines. So all hands on deck were focused on spending the stimulus energy dollars. And so the RGGI dollars weren't being spent. It just wasn't a priority. And the other thing is, I've just mentioned to you, we've gone through this about a year of financial transactions and evaluation. Well, the board has been very reluctant to spend much money without really knowing what they had. So the good news is 2013 is really our year for kicking off programs and thinking about how are we going to get not only our $3.5 million allotment, but also that $9 million back in there working for Delaware. And so that's what I'm telling you now is going forward. We're absolutely committed to figuring out how we're going to spend that money and the best ways of doing it. And I'm going to talk about some of that. So I got the ERA money there. Again, that's done. We did that from 2009 to 2011, and that was really a partnership with the State Energy Office. It really wasn't under our control. Our role was more advisory role in the design, the funding, and the marketing, and the oversight. And so it was really managed by the Department of Energy. And one of the big restatements in our financial statements is all of those ERA dollars are going off of the SEU books. They should have never been on our books because we never had management control of it. So that was done in 2011, and sort of, all the dollars got spent through 2012. We do get fees for services. I mentioned that we raise money for bond issues, but we also charge a small administrative fee for those services. And we're also running the SREC auction, which I'll talk about. We get a small administrative fee there. We can and do low interest loans. We did a $250,000 loan several years ago for some energy improvements for an office building in Wilmington. So we make interest off the loan. That's an income source. And we are also authorized to do SREC banking. And if you know anything about SRECs or solar renewable energy credits, you know that they expire after 3 years. But the SEU can actually buy SRECs and they don't expire. It's sort of a special special approval that we got from the legislature. And really why that occurred was to help the Dover solar park, Dover Sun Park. Dover Sun Park was built about 1.5 years ago. It was so large, it was going to overwhelm the solar market. And so the concept was that the SEU would buy the SRECs from the Dover Sun Park. We would hold them, and then we're going to sell them to Delmarva in future years when their need to buy SRECs goes up. If this is too complicated or you don't understand what I'm talking about, just let me know and I'll try to go over it a little more. So we make a little bit of money on that. We're going to actually sell them at a 7% more than we bought them. It really makes up for inflation over those years. We're going to buy in the first 2 years and sell in the third, fourth, and fifth year.
That's just for the Delaware, for the Dover
Sun Park, yeah. And now, if there are other...
I've got SRECs also.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
There's a few.
yeah, we're going to talk about the auction coming up, and,
Okay.
and there's mixed feelings about that. And, yeah, so this was really done several years ago. In fact, I was a part of it on the other side when I was city manager in Dover and put the deal together. So the good news is it was a part of creating the Dover Sun Park. So we talked about the other program I mentioned earlier was the Energized Delaware programs. Those were the ones that were really funded out of the ERA dollars and some RGGI dollars. And so this was really 2009 through 2011. So I'm hoping that you guys have heard about those. Energized Delaware, there was a home improvement rebate program. There was a new home construction rebate program. We were doing rebates at hardware stores for CFLs. We were doing rebates for folks that bought high energy appliances. We were doing loans and rebates to businesses that were putting in high efficiency equipment or making improvements to their building or doing renewable. And so, that was about a $19 million program. Over that 19 millions, we estimate that the programs are going to create about 75 million in lifetime energy savings. And there's been about 110 metric tons of greenhouse gases emissions reduced as a result of those programs, which is what the stimulus is all about. That was 80% stimulus money and maybe 15% Reggie dollars.
Was it managed by SEU or was it a
You know, again, that was the one that was truly managed by the SEU contract administrator that we operated under before I was hired.
Okay.
But that contract administrator, really, his contract was controlled by the Energy Office and not the SEU board. So the contract administrator and the fiscal administrator back then really reported to DENREC and on a day-to-day basis reported to DENREC and not the SEU board. So I'm sort of going through past programs, and now we're into some current programs. The Delaware SREC program, this is the auction we did. There was a renewable energy task force. I don't know if anybody was on it. Is Jim Black, Jim, I don't know if he's a member here, but he goes to the task force. You know, he was a member there, and so they recommended to create an auction that was held last March. And the SEU was hired to manage the auction, and we're going to manage an auction next March. There was a lot of controversy over the design of the SREC auction. You know, it wasn't our design; it was a design by a committee, a state committee. But we're actually managing it. So, you know, what does it do? It did stabilize the SREC market if you were able to participate in it. You know, it created a place for people to sell their SRECs. It created a place for people who were thinking about adding solar to sell their SRECs. You know, the key for the SEU is our goal was to do it in a fair and transparent way. And that's what I was emphasized on. You know, the design was done by other people. We were just going to manage it. So it was an online auction. We hired a company to do the software, run the program. So everything's online, and you know, you can. And we're doing another auction in March, and we changed a little bit. If you had an older system, you weren't able to participate last time. You know, we heard from a lot of Delaware residents saying, "Hey, I was a leader in this area. You know, I was one of the first ones in there. Now you're finally doing an auction, and I can't join." So this year you can participate, and so you go to SRECDelaware.com, and all of the details are on there if you want to learn more about it. And it opens up in the end of March. This auction is going to be a pure bid. You will compete against other people with similar systems to you. So residential owners with small residential systems are going to bid in with other residential owners. Big folks with ground-mounted, 2-megawatt systems, they'll compete against other people in the system. So you will be able to participate. Now, if you've saved up a lot of your SRECs over the years, you can't put them in. This would be your SRECs going forward. Yeah. So I mentioned the banking again. That's an active program that we're doing. So every month I'm writing a check from our Reggie funds to buy SRECs. We're putting them in the SREC bank, also online, and then we'll plan on selling them back out in a couple of years. And again, the real purpose of the program was to establish what was Delaware's first really large, almost utility scale solar project. That's a 10-megawatt solar project. It covers about 100 acres on the east side of Dover. Dover takes power from it. The SRECs were divided up amongst DP&L and the other municipalities, and Dover takes off the energy and the capacity. So.
Tony, I have a question about the upcoming auction. How many SRECs is that going to?
7,000.
7,000 SRECs.
Right. So less than last time. Last year it was 11,700, I think.
Not including Dover?
Yeah, the Dover project is out of it, so it has nothing to do with it. So we don't. The solar SREC auction is really for smaller projects. So a Dover-sized project isn't even allowed in the auction. I think the biggest you can have is like a 2-megawatt system. But what we've done is we've created sort of pools. So we have a pool. We set aside so many SRECs for large systems. We set so many across for medium systems, and so many. And I'd be happy to come back and just do a presentation on how the auctions work and their purpose.
So is that 7,000 divided between?
Yeah.
Like the 3 smaller tiers?
Yeah, there's 3 tiers, and the other thing we've done is we've also we've divided it between proposed, proposed projects and existing projects. So, were you gonna?
I was gonna say there's actually 4 smaller tiers, because tier 2 is 2A and 2B.
Yeah, that's right. So there's actually 4 tiers by size.
I thought there were 4 before.
There were 5.
Yeah, there were.
It was 1, 2A, 2B, 3, and 4, and Dover took 4.
Yeah. So, but there, so the 4 was never really a part of the auction.
Yeah.
We just decided not to.
And so that 75,000 is divided up among those.
The smaller.
Yep.
4
Yeah.
tiers.
Right. So, so we talked pretty much about the banking, but I'd be happy to talk more about the auction. The Green for Green program, this is the first one. So last Friday, we restarted. This was program that was done under the Energized Delaware programs. It stopped in early 2012. They stopped taking applications in 11. This is our first program of rolling out a program again. So I said we had a budget, so we budgeted $400,000 for this year. And this is a program to give rebates to new construction, new homes that are built to a higher energy efficiency standard. So we were projecting about 200 homes will participate this year. The rebates will be anywhere from $1,000 to $4,500. We've actually set aside about 10% of the funds for nonprofit, low mod income, so we're concerned about that segment. So that's for like Habitat for Humanities type organizations. And so the rebates are if you build a house or you buy a house and it has a LEED certification, or if it's certified by the Green Building Council as a Emerald or Gold or something, you can get different rebates. And we also have a website specifically to that program. It's called greenforgreen.com, or Delaware Green for Green. So again, this is geared towards new home construction. And we also recognize HERS ratings. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but you can actually get your house rated, it's called a HERS rating. And if you have a score less than 59, then you also qualify for a rebate. So,
What's that called?
a HERS rating, I think it's,
HERS?
yeah, Home Energy Rating System.
And that's for new, rebates for new?
Yeah, new construction.
Okay.
So the other thing is we'll be putting out to bid, we'll be putting out an RFP for the home performance program. So we'd like to start that program up too, which is for existing houses where you get an energy audit, audit comes back and you choose what level of improvements you want to do to your house, and then we would offer rebates and or low interest loan financing to finance that. So that'll hopefully be the next program we'll roll out. But I'm going to talk about other future programs. So we also have a low interest revolving loan program. Our board, again, part of the accountability is updating their loan policy. It hadn't been touched in 4 or 5 years. It was really outdated. So we're in the process of updating that. So we have our standards are better. But again, we're going to take some of that money that's been in the bank, and we'll set aside a certain amount for doing low interest loans. These are actually for commerce and industry. It could also be for not-for-profits, but these are big projects. While the home performance program would be sort of the same thing for residential. So another program we have going, we have right now $250,000 loan to an office building in Wilmington.
Tony?
Yep.
The home performance program, I guess I'm not clear on, is that it's not approved or it's not?
It was sunsetted, it was stopped when the error dollars, and we'd like to get it restarted again. It was a popular program, and so we're going to do a request for proposals for folks to run the program for us. Sort of my philosophy on the SEU is I don't want to grow a lot more employees. I'd rather contract you to run a program, and then I'm going to manage your contract, and that way we get out of the hassles of having bigger offices and more employee type expenses, and there are companies that specialize in that. So we would go out and we would hire a company who would run a program for us.
Do you have, so that's, when you say it's a proposal, you have proposing that to the board, or?
No, the board has already okayed it, so when I say a request for proposal, we're actually going to be publishing in the newspapers, looking for companies to give us proposals to evaluate, so it's a competitive bidding process,
So
basically.
you're recruiting somebody to run?
Yes,
the program?
yeah. So we've sort of set aside about $1.5 million a year as a test to see how it goes. Those programs could be very expensive, depending on how big they are. I think that program spent almost like $9 million in the 2 years that it existed under ERA. So we don't have that kind of money like we had before coming in. So we have to have sort of a smaller, more prudent, has to be a little more sensitive to admin expenses. So we want to minimize admin expenses and get as much on the street as possible. But that will be for the residences. So.
Right, and you're hoping to do that in 2013?
I hope so, yeah. If we can turn it around, once we get the proposals, if we get proposals that make sense, we take, a selected one to a board and we get it approved, so. I would hope that we can get that restarted.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah, so it was a popular program. The real problem with the SEU was you had all this stimulus dollars. There was no succession planning. So nobody was thinking about what are we going to do when this money runs out. And so they ended the programs quickly, and there was, quite frankly, there was some bad planning on the part of a bunch of different folks. That, but the bottom line is there just wasn't any succession planning. I was actually brought in at the very end when things started to stop. So my professional background is as a planner. I mean, I'm an urban planner by profession. So this is right up my alley. It just drives me nuts that there wasn't more forethought on how things were going to be figured out going forward. So this is our big program that we're really proud of. So this was our 2011 Energy Performance Bond Series. I mentioned that's one of the things that we have the authority to do is to do a tax-exempt bond. So in 2011, this was a Delaware first, and I don't mean just for Delaware, but first time in the country this has ever happened. We floated an energy efficiency bond issue. So this was public. It was done in Wall Street just like general obligation bonds. It raised $72.5 million. $72.5 million were raised. Now to put that in perspective, the ERA dollars, right, the stimulus money was about $22 million. So we actually raised through private capital, Wall Street kind of dollars, investment dollars, almost 3 times, a little more than 3 times of what was raised through the stimulus dollars. So that money was raised, and that money is going for energy efficiency projects in 3 state agencies, and Deltech, and Delaware State University. And all told, we're about halfway through spending that money on energy improvements. It's creating about, we estimate, 866 construction jobs. Part of Kathleen's job is to figure out how we can get that a little more specific. And the net utility savings to these agencies and to the state of Delaware over the life of the bonds, which is 20 years, is almost $26.5 million. So that's what we're going to be saving in energy savings. And again, this is the single largest investment in energy efficiency. For example, the largest user of that money is the prisons, Department of Correction. They're taking $40 million alone. And, so what are they doing with it? They're putting in all, you can help me with this maybe, but a big chunk of theirs is they're putting all new energy efficient HVAC systems in, new boilers, which is huge for a prison, huge expense.
New water heaters.
New water heaters. So, but $40 million in the Department of Corrections alone. So it's huge. So this is something Kathleen just put together. She's been calculating. So this is the actual annual emissions reductions from these programs. So as you can see, that's a lot of pounds or tons of emissions. But what Kathleen was kind enough to do is kind of put it in their usable numbers. So it was like taking 13 million passenger vehicles off the road. Is that right? Yeah. Well, I guess that's over the 20-year period. Over the 20-year period. And it's like sequestering about 51 million acres of forest. And again, this is over 20 years, so that's a lot. So we're really taking a lot of the emissions out.
Is that just for the bond, or is that for all the programs?
That's just the
That's
bond.
just the bond issue programs.
Yeah. So
Because those are ones we have specific projects
Right.
and numbers from the ESCOs.
So here's what I really, want to talk about, because, point I want to make to the Sunset Committee and everybody else is, we're just really restarting. This is an organization that's gone through a rebirth, if you will, sort of re-engagement. And so this is just, some of the things that we're talking about. We want to renew that Home Performance with Energy Star program. We are working right now with the Red Clay School District to do energy efficiency throughout their system. We're talking about borrowing $20 million to help them do that. And again, just like the other bond system, the way we structure this financing is such that the savings, the annual savings, the real reduction in your utility costs are going to be greater than the debt service to pay the loan off. So that there's actually a net savings each year. So that's the second program. That's huge for us. I'm right now in conversations with the Delaware Community Investment Corporation. They're also a nonprofit, but they're really a consortium of banks who pool their money to meet their Community Reinvestment Act obligations. And so they invest in low mod income housing, and they invest in community development projects that support low and moderate income communities. So what we're talking about is we'll put in a little bit of that cash, maybe $1 million or $2 million with what we have, and then they'll put in maybe $8 million. So now I got a bigger fund that we can then go to low mod income housing developments and community projects to borrow the money and do energy efficiency in their organization. So one of the first ones that we're talking to is the Boys and Girls Clubs of Delaware. They got like 8 or 9 facilities that they can really use to, better insulated windows, insulation, weatherization, HVAC systems. Some of your biggest savings are just modern thermostats and controls and ways to monitor them. So that's an example how we would use that project. LED streetlights. I'm a big fan of them. They're on Division Street in Dover. So while I was city manager, I managed to get all of our main east-west streets done with LED lights because I was just a fan of them. So now I'm talking with an organization called the Delaware Municipal Electric Corporation. They represent the 9 municipalities with electric systems. And we're talking about working with them to finance LED streetlights in those communities. And we're going to start with the Cobra Head lights along the highway. So that's a program that we have going forward, and that would be another financing program. And that could be several millions of dollars in costs for new streetlights. And that's a way where everybody saves, because a lot of people don't realize that in most municipalities, it's really your general fund taxes that are paying for streetlights. Your town is paying Delmarva for electric. And in a town like Dover, where we own the electric company, it's actually the general fund. It pays the electric fund for the cost. So it reduces it for everybody. It really kind of socializes the benefits.
How much electricity savings do you get from switching to an LED?
It's about 30% right now. So it's significant because you don't get that savings with CFLs, but you can't put CFLs in streetlights. So we're going from halogen lighting to LED lights. Clean vehicle financing, I'm in discussions right now. This is an area we have never done a program in. I'd like to do something for electric vehicles. We've talked about it, but I don't have anything in deep discussions. But I do have conversations with Chesapeake Utilities about helping a couple of their clients convert their fleets, their passenger fleets, to natural gas vehicles. So that's another conversation we're having. Again, could be a significant amount of money, but we would invest that as finance it.
Green, have you thought? So you're also thinking about electric fleets?
If I can find a good partner who is willing to do that, and I just haven't found one yet who I can work with, but I would love to do a pilot program for electric vehicles. Maybe we would do rebates to pick up the cost of installing the chargers in homes. But I haven't found a partner yet.
So you're looking for a partner, you're not looking for sort of a big entity which has a fleet, you're looking for a partner to help
Yeah.
with the technology, or you're looking for both?
You know, I think I would entertain both. I was sort of more interested in that until Chesapeake Utilities came along, and they were sort of helping me out to figure this out. So I just haven't had somebody to really think about it with, but
I know somebody who's interested in
yeah.
trying to do that.
Yeah, to try to jumpstart a little more electric vehicles.
Yeah, I'll contact him and I'll
Right.
connect you guys.
Okay.
What kind of, when you say good partner, or good, what are you looking for?
Well, you know, ideally I just, you know, because we're an office of one, so examples of good partners are things I just gave. So I'm partnering with the Delaware Municipal Electric Co-op for, you know, LED streetlights. We're partnering with the Delaware Investment Corporation for low mod income. I'm partnering with the gas company to, you know, promote gas vehicles. And I just haven't had, I don't know if there's a dealer out there or somebody out there who I can really partner with, who would be a way of promoting the program and getting the information out. You know, I don't know if I can find a consortium of car dealers who would, you know, throw in. So I just don't know.
For some reason, I was on Wilmington parking, whatever their, what is it, the parking people are. And they're into, they had some kind of program where they were looking into that, I guess, you know, putting stations in the parking garage.
Yeah, some states have been spending money by putting these charging stations in public places. But what I'm reading is that they're not used very much. So I would be interested in helping people. I think that there's a cost of converting, you know, putting the charge at your house that, you know, they have to figure in.
So you go directly to people.
You know, a lot of my partnerships are a function of who I meet, you know, getting discussions going. So I take opportunities as they come. So I'm looking for an opportunity on electric vehicles and welcome discussion. Green Congregation. There's an organization out there. It's called Interfaith Power and Light. Isn't that a great name? Also a nonprofit organization. And they're dedicated to helping churches and church congregations save money. John Sykes is president of that, so I've been working with them. And we've been talking about maybe the SEU would do an incentive program or a competition program for church congregations who save money, to give them some sort of reward or award, you know, at the end of the session. So we're in talks with them about designing a program. But we want to roll these. So we've sort of targeted that for the last part of 2013 to roll out that program. But we think churches are a great way to get the word out to the general public through the church. So they might have a program where they're going to try to total up, you know, how much money has the church saved through energy efficiency measures they do, you know, how much energy has saved in the congregation who participate in the program, right? And then also they can reach out to the community around the church, you know, how much have they saved. So that's another program we're sort of in discussions. And another good example of a partner that I'm sort of partnering with. And last week I've gone to this is really an early. I've gone to a couple meetings in South Wilmington about maybe doing a community solar project. And again, this may be geared towards low mod income folks. We have in our legislation, it calls for a program that was going to be called the solar, but anyway, there was emphasis in the legislation for us to try to find a way to get solar energy and the benefits of it to low mod income populations, because usually they're cut out of that mix. So I've gone to a couple of meetings. I think you all know Jim Black. He's been organizing that effort in South Wilmington.
This is the Lifeline, Solar Lifeline?
Solar Lifeline, that was it. So it was a concept. I'm not sure what they were thinking when they put it in legislation, but maybe this project could meet that goal of creating a solar lifeline.
So that would be maybe a local, an empty lot or something?
Yeah, so they're working with the city of Wilmington and Delmarva Power to find some vacant lots in Wilmington that the city owns where they can actually do a ground-mounted solar project. And then they're trying to figure out a way where you would pay for that, the community would pay part of their energy to go for that, and that would reduce their energy bill. So it's a metering issue. It's been done in other states and other places, so.
Delmarva doesn't have a problems with.
No, they're actually been kind of supportive of the idea. So,
It keeps them from having to build new power plants.
yeah.
Yeah, really. I mean, and
So-
if you get that,
Yeah.
I mean, I live in Wilmington, I have panels on my house, it's a city house. I was, trying to get any, this was several years ago, solar providers to come up and even look and talk to me.
Oh, really?
Really, it's complicated.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Just because of, it's denser, there's, the
Yeah.
roofing is weird,
Yeah.
more trees
Yeah.
around, I mean, less open space. You just go out to the burbs and there's,
And Delaware doesn't have solar access laws on the books either, like some states do.
so, yeah, there's huge opportunities, I think, in the
How
urban
about
environment.
covering rather than ground mounting? So, I mean, obviously this is conceptual, I'm being a little specific here. But like, there's a lot of parking garages and
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
in
Yeah.
Wilmington
Yeah.
that,
Good idea.
All over the place.
Big box,
Box
like
stores.
Walmart, and
yeah,
all these huge supermarkets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always think parking garages.
So
are like
this
that.
particular, it's that Southbridge community.
Maybe Southbridge.
Yeah.
Apparently there's a bunch of older industrial
Yeah,
land
there's
that
like
just sits
a
there.
brownfield.
And I think that that's one of the concepts we're talking about.
2 years ago, the study showed that there was nationwide, there was over 900 million acres of rooftop that was optimum for solar, and that and they projected the amount that essentially the country could sell, the U.S. could sell CO2 credits to other countries if they were to enact something like this, and then Germany and Japan both have laws about new construction and incorporation of solar,
Yeah.
and with very
Hawaii
few
does-
exceptions.
Hawaii has those too.
So I forgot
Except
to
I don't
prepare a
think it's
thank you
residential.
slide, so this is the end of my presentation. And I just open it up to questions or thoughts, but I hope you all see that I think we made a lot of improvements in the way we govern ourselves, the way we operate, and that, we do have plans for moving forward on more programs and really, being a little more, thinking forward on how much income are we getting, what can we do over time. So we're trying to be more accountable for